Brooklyn Independent Television.
Hey, it's a big
But
vote.
will Brooklyn really go for
Why
it?
don't we just agree to disagree?
Yeah, that's really gonna fly in
Well, that's a
Brooklyn.
good question.
No. Listen.
That's exactly the point I wanted to make.
As the troop drawdown continues, thousands of military service people are returning to their civilian lives. But when it comes to social, medical, and housing needs, veterans are often underserved. And like the rest of America, Brooklyn will be welcoming troops back home. But what special challenges will returning veterans face, and how is New York City equipped to help? This is Intersect, and today we're talking Brooklyn veterans. I'm joined by Terrance C. Holliday, the Commissioner of the Mayor's Office of Veterans Affairs, Wendy McClinton, the President and CEO of Black Veterans for Social Justice, and Aaron Bramwell, a member of the Disabled American Veterans as well as the Veterans of Foreign Wars. So I always say thanks for being here and joining us today, but I also would be remiss if I didn't add thank you all for your service. We're very happy to have you here, and it's an important issue that we're discussing today, especially in Brooklyn, where we know there are almost 100,000 veterans as we sit here right now, and that number is only going to go up. So starting right at the beginning, Commissioner, the post of your office has only been around since the late 80s. So in that time even, how much has the need and the mission changed?
Well, just a correction. The veteran population in Brooklyn is around 49,000.
Okay.
49,775. Okay. Our office is come into existence since 1987. We're a constituent-based agency, and what we do is provide a connectivity for veterans and their families to make certain that they're getting the benefits that they're entitled to with the VA, the state, and also to make certain that we assist them in getting services from New York City sometimes when they run into that bureaucratic speed bump, right, or they don't necessarily understand how to handle that. We have a requirement that we handle any veteran with service. If that veteran comes in and has what we call bad paper, DD Form 214, which is the statement of service, and if it is not under honorable conditions, the VA doesn't serve. Okay, so we assist that individual not only in benefits, but they're on a case-by-case basis. We do a short-term case management with some issues. We have a number of other programs, but we're that connectivity as we liaison from City Hall to the residents of the 5 boroughs.
So you sort of step into that gap where the national, where the Department of Veterans doesn't necessarily provide as many services, the city picks up the slack essentially.
The city has some other services that sort of fold into it. We talk about we talk about the Department of Homeless Services. So you help with homelessness, education. We connect with, say, the benefits that you can get with the GI Bill, the City University of New York City, and we're essentially a voice to make a bunch of other things heard out there. And we have a lot of city employees who are also reservists and are entitled to benefits. So we make certain that we're available to help residents of New York City connect with that. And a lot of times it's like families. We have a program, I don't want to take a lot on that, but we do have a program where any veteran who has had honorable service is entitled to be buried in a national cemetery. And when we have a program where we're working with organizational friends, and MOVA works with them to ensure that these individuals get those final military honors through these organizational friends if they're unclaimed or indigent. So just a bunch of other different things, but we're sort of growing what we're doing, but we're trying to connect with the veteran service organizations, helping them with their programs, and making certain that anything that we can do to make it more rewarding is there. And connecting with great programs like the Black Veterans for Social Justice and other folks. So
Well, thank you
whatever.
for that segue. We're
Yeah.
going to move right along to you, Ms. McClintock.
Yeah.
Black Veterans for Social Justice, how did you guys come around, and what was the push for your formation? Because there was obviously a need. You're serving a population that we talk about veterans being underserved. It's sort of a subset of the underserved.
Correct. Well, Black Veterans for Social Justice was established in 1979 when a group of Afro-American veterans came back from Vietnam. And it was during that time they saw a need for services at that time that were not being provided. So they basically began as an advocacy group. And then over the years, 33 years later, a veteran service organization, community-based, based right here in Bedford-Stuyvesant, which services anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 veterans within a year, including in that number their families within the community as well. So with these services, they transitioned, and what I wanted to say was that we service veterans. We don't just service honorably discharged veterans, we service dishonorably discharged veterans. Because sometimes being dishonorably discharged does not mean that I did something wrong. It can mean that I've just had enough, or I just don't want to go back. So where that may be negative in some eyes, it may not be in others. So we try to help them make that transition through advocacy, upgrade, whatever legal services they need, so that they will be able to receive the benefits from the VA and other organizations within the system to help them and their families move into, make that transition easily. We also do housing. We do supportive housing. We do transitional housing. We do permanent housing. We help with employment. We also help in one of the programs, HVRP, the Homeless Veterans Reintegration Program, where you have homeless veterans who come home and need that transition and assistance into civilian from military. We also specialize in women veterans with children. That's one thing that Black Vets prided itself on, was that we service the family of veterans. When you're in the military, the whole component is serviced. And when you come home, it's the service member that they only have benefits for. But you forget about the spouses, we forget about the children, and they're an intricate part of that transition. So as the service member transitions, so the family has to transition also. So with that, going back to the question, in 1979, it was during the Vietnam era that we began to establish Black Vets. But what we found is that the services or the need hasn't changed, it's just the face that's changed. The difference now, you have much younger individuals coming home. You have more children being survivors, of veterans. How do we help them? How do we make them make the transition? And the need now is greater. As far as women veterans are concerned, they're no longer women in the military, they're women in combat. So you have these entities, the VA MOVA is working towards moving with women veterans, the specialty, to see the need, because it's hard to deal with a female veteran who's an amputee when the VA system is really dominantly being geared for
Built
men,
around service
but
and
it's moving not as fast as we would want it to, and we're working to do that, but moving towards servicing women. And then the other thing that we really galvanize, and I can't stress it enough, is services for the family, especially the children of veterans. And that's where that whole Black Veterans for Social Justice came into its existence and came about to do the work.
So a second ago, Ms. McClintock spoke about the changing face of the veterans that are coming home, and people are younger and younger who've been in service. And I wanted to ask you, as a member of Vets from Foreign Wars, as well as Disabled American Vets, and I know you also do some work with the Wounded Warriors Project, what is that face? What are you finding in Brooklyn who our returning vets are, and what are they letting you know that they need?
They're a lot younger, and one of the major problems is PSTD. That's they had it back in the Vietnam War era.
Now it has a name, is the sort of thing.
Well, they had a name for it back then too. They called it shell shock back then, but now it's PSTD. They clinically named it PSTD. And that's a big, and like she mentioned, amputees also. I'm an amputee on both legs. And the VA, when I first got my first amputation, and it wasn't war related or military related at all. When I first got my first amputation, somebody suggested go to the VA because that's what they do. And okay, I went to them, and it's been fantastic since. The VA has helped me greatly with with my amputations. I was just there yesterday getting the new set of legs. The organizations that these people that they represent, I've never heard about New York City Veterans Affairs until I met the commissioner today. Well, I heard about it yesterday, but I met the commissioner today. Black Veterans for Social Justice, I've heard of the organization. I think they're right there on Fulton Street, correct?
No, we consolidated all of our operations, and we're now at 665 Willoughby, between Troop and Marcus Garvey. Okay.
And I've met some vets down at the VA hospital that, talk about that organization a lot too, and they seem to be doing a great job. What the commissioner was just talking about is needed for a lot of these veterans coming back because there was a problem with the Vietnam veterans when they came back. They were homeless. They weren't, there was a lot of benefits that just weren't there for them. Right. And it's gotten greater, I guess because this war is more recognized than the Vietnam War. But these organizations are there to help them, and, all you got to do is reach out and go to them. They're there for you.
So we talked a moment ago about the shell shock versus post-traumatic stress disorder and the language and just the feeling around. America did a disgraceful job with the Vietnam veterans when they were returning. And it seems we have Michelle Obama and Dr. Biden out there working on behalf of America's military families and making people aware of what we can each do to sort of ease the way for our returning service people. So how has this sort of shift in the way that America is being asked to recognize the service of veterans affecting your jobs? Is it making outreach and services easier?
Can I say, Dr. Biden, Michelle Obama are doing a fantastic job, okay? I'm retired military, and as you go back in history, you take a look at Vietnam, we did a lot of things wrong. We treated veterans disgracefully. And when Colin Powell and Secretary Weinberger, okay, when they got together and they said, when we go to war, there are certain ways we're going to go to war. And at that time, there was a national change in terms of how we're going to treat people when they come back and what they do. So there are a lot of things that you see out there. There's something called a yellow ribbon program. Okay. And I don't know how long this has been in existence. I think about 5 or 6 years. The yellow ribbon program prepares military members and their families for deployment. Okay, I have had the privilege to go out and meet many of the reservists from Floyd Bennett Field, the Marines, the 6th Communications Battalion, National Guard folks, and I've had a chance to meet them as they're going out to tell them what New York City will do for them and their families or be prepared to do. Now, they may be in the hills of Afghanistan, right, but whoever they leave behind should have a packet of information and my business card, so that if they run into a problem where the city is not picking up their garbage, or they're trying to fight City Hall on something, they call us, or they should be calling us, right, or if there's something that we can do. And we try to get to them before they deploy. When they come back, the Yellow Ribbon has there's a 30, 60, and 90-day program where people get off the plane. It's not like boats in the harbor anymore, but people get off the plane, and it's like the honeymoon period where everyone is happy to see everyone get back safe. But then about 30 days, the problems that they left behind begin to resurface. Right. So whether it's a job or divorce or something where there's a conflict, that begins to surface. So particularly the National Guard, they do it pretty well, okay? So they bring in people to help out and do everything else. By the 60th day, they have an opportunity for people like me okay, and other agencies to come on in and meet with them and tell them, well, what can we do for you? Do you need to get into school? Do you need to see somebody at CUNY? Do you need help with housing? So we get in there, and then there's another one at 90 days where you're not allowed to bring other people in, but that's where they really get down, and they begin to determine, they begin to say, okay, you've got mental health problems. We need to set you up with counseling. Or they have been set up, but they need to see where you are. So they begin to make that transition as you go from military life and deployed into combat life,
Right.
into returning into civilian life. We're doing a lot better. There's no one organization that has the key
Right.
to make this thing happen. It takes everybody to do it, and every day there are new ideas. So the person who tells you they got the silver bullet, walk away from them and find somebody else, because it takes everybody to do it, and you can't be concerned about territory. Right?
So the word that we've been hearing a lot in the course of getting ready for the show is reintegration. Reintegration, getting people back into some semblance of their lives and letting them know that it's okay if things aren't as they were before, but we're here.
But I agree. But I do believe that prevention, it doesn't start, when you come back.
Right.
It starts while you're still in. It's called intervention. So when we look at that, how do you prepare someone? You prepare someone prior to them arriving. So let's build on your transitional assistance piece.
And this is a holistic view.
This
like
is
you
a whole,
said, this
exactly.
isn't just
So,
pre-deployment while
exactly.
you're in it and you come back home. This is
When you come back home, you should be already linked with individuals that can be ready to assist. But see, that has to, when you say everyone, that bridge has to be between the Department of Defense and the VA, the Veterans Administration, so that we are in contact with you prior to you leaving the military. We're in contact with your family prior to you leaving the military. So once you leave, all those services, we can do some assessments, we can do some things, but what you need is already ready here. And this is what happens. See, because after the parade is over, and after everybody stops calling, and after all of the hoopla, all right, reality sets in.
Yeah.
Because now, like you go back, let's go back to Vietnam. Vietnam, where you had severe cases of drug abuse and different alcoholism. Now you have individuals coming back. Suicide is high amongst veterans that are coming home now. Not being able to engage themselves in jobs, not having those skills and those counseling mindsets that can help me make that transition. Transition cannot just be a physical thing, it has to be a mindset.
Right.
Now you conditioned me to go in, now how do you uncondition me when I come out? So these are some of the things that we really have to look at and what we have to face. Sometimes, yes, get them in school. It's a problem when you come out the military and the only thing that you can access is unemployment.
Yeah.
Unemployment is not enough for me to pay my rent. Unemployment may not be enough for me to feed my family.
And
so we have to address those things.
People who are not used to sitting
No,
back.
they're not.
And
They're
these
not
are
used to that.
Warriors. They've
Exactly.
been out there.
So they've been there, they know, and it's hard. It's hard to deal with. Social readjustment is hard. They're totally, the mindset of a veteran, as we all know, is totally different than from one that has not been in the military. It's an entity all in itself. So we have to look at those things and try to address those things. So, and again, I go back to say, it has to start before you come out. And that's the program that we really need to build on. And that's the Transitional Assistance Program, which is called TAP. And if you don't have the information, if you don't have the correct information, so many people deploy from overseas thinking they're going to get A, B, C, and D. And when they arrive, A, B, C, and D is not here. Yeah. So what's your other plan with that? But if the intervention had started prior to them coming out, we would have found that, guess what? This is not in place for you. So let's look at something else for you. Let's look at that. We can identify the ones that we know are going to have a problem making transition. Let's address some of the issues that how can I be in the military police force, in the military, and I can't get a job on the police force. I can't go to work for Homeland Security. How can I be a medic on the battlefield and not guaranteed a job as an EMT? How can we get these transitional, how do we get rid of the red tape? for these individuals that have served this country? And how do we move them so that they unify with their families, that they live successful and productive lives, and not just, oh, I'm a veteran. No, I am a veteran, but I'm a human being with a family and a purpose and a community, everybody together doing this for these individuals.
So this is something that every veteran has to contend with as they're coming home, but on top of that, there are those, and there's a large population of people who have that to contend with and coming home with a physical disability now.
You know, Ms. McClinton just mentioned something. I know when I came out of the service and I applied for unemployment, they told me I only had it for 6 months. And I was like, 6 months, you know? She said, yeah, because you're a marketable commodity. And I couldn't understand what that meant, you know?
Yeah.
But it was easy within that 6 month period. It was easy for me to find a job, you know, especially with the city. And, you know, I understood after that, you know, the training that I got in the military was what was needed here, you know, when I got out, you know. And that's what carried me through. Well, you know, I worked for the city for over 17 years, you know, and never once did I have to use my military benefits or my 5 points that I got for it, you know. When I did use it for another test, you know, I scored high on it. But it wasn't I didn't know about that while I was in the service. Right. You know, I was stationed in San Diego, and everything was going on here in New York. When I came back into New York, I was just dumped here and, you know, fend for yourself, you know. So that TAP program sounds pretty interesting, you know.
So you talk about your marketable skills that were then. We're in a completely different place in terms of our economy and jobs right now, and people are, for all intents and purposes, struggling. And then we add on top of that people who've been active and professional, and they come back and they're competing on lines with people who've been displaced from their jobs as well.
Master's degrees.
Exactly.
You know, I had just taken a look at some figures. There are things that's changing right now, okay? And when I went to school, I wasn't really great in economics and stuff, but I understood a few things.
Yeah.
And I think back in 2008, when this economy took a nosedive, it took a big one. Right. And there were sometimes you have to spend money to make money, and you have to spend money to get jobs. And I think that we're in a period right now where the economy is turning around. Veteran employment is at like 7% now. It took a 6% drop down, which really surprised me when I was looking, you know, at these figures as I was preparing for our discussion today. And I think nationally, I think it dropped again too. We had at MOVA, I've been on the job at MOVA since January of 2011. So I'm like new to a lot of this other stuff, and it was my first appointment, and working for the mayor has been really good. All right, we had a couple of job fairs, and we had some success. You know, we had success. It was out there. We had a job fair on January 19th. We had we had over 600 vets. I called it at 550 because that's where we stopped counting, but we had a place full of people still to be in process. We had over 600 vets, and they're getting jobs. And we're going to do something similar. So I think the economy's turning around. I think that the military can do a better job of that transition into civilian life. And it was interesting that Secretary Shinseki from the VA is meeting regularly with Secretary Gates from DOD about veterans issues. And I hope something comes from that. But they can do a better job of getting our folks ready to transition and reintegrate.
So speaking of reintegrating, are there specific challenges that we have here in Brooklyn that may be different from someone going to San Diego or being dropped off back at home in Omaha? Like, what are, if there are, any unique sort of challenges or even benefits of being in a place like Brooklyn for returning veterans?
Some of the challenges, yes, one is housing. The economy, the cost to live in Brooklyn.
Right.
You take the other part, the back part, because then if I go down south or go somewhere, then I'm not able to access health because there may be such rural areas that they're not close to the hospital.
So the cost of living may be smaller, but the resource pool is smaller than.
And exactly. So, and one thing, just want to go back to, and also to piggyback with the employment and searching, everybody, and I don't want to seem, because everybody wants to help, And everybody wants to do something, but everybody's not qualified to help. And everybody's not ready to do. See, because we can pierce our hearts, but then how do you help? And that's the thing that we need. So if someone wants to help, if you want to employ a veteran, because now they have tax credits and different things that employing companies can receive because they're hire vet, and that vet may not be ready to go to work. You may chop into your organization like Black Veterans for Social Justice that has an employment program that will be able to see and you meet the need. If you have a veteran, or if you want to hire a veteran, we have their resumes. We know which ones are ready, which ones are not ready. Same thing probably has that same piece at MOVA as well. So you can work that way to try to help with the economy, with them finding jobs. And housing is hard. Housing has to be developed. We have so much space, we can develop some housing.
One good thing is that when you talk about veterans, you talk about people who have survivor skills.
Yeah.
They can piece together unemployment insurance, GI Bill of Rights,
make it.
and they can make it. We get a couple of other things in there for them. There are programs out there that we can get them in. Those survivor skills will help them, but that's a temporary thing to help them with the transition. So, that's a plus. But the challenge is, you take a look at New York City. Well, you can get around without a car. You got good transportation, so you don't need that. But housing, I mean, you can go someplace and get a one-bedroom apartment for $200-300 that up here would cost you $2,000, $1,500.
The survivor, I agree with the survivor skills. This is survivor skills for a sole veteran. If it's just him or her by themselves, is greater than when they have a family with them. Because now the survivor is not just for yourself. You have to meet the need of this whole family. And that's hard. And I believe, if you service the entire family, and that could really put a dampen on the veteran, knowing that I cannot take care of and provide for my family. And I'm trained to defend, and I'll defend my family at all costs, as I did my country. And that's real troubling, to have to now go from a dress unit to the Department of Homeless Services.
So we have 1 minute left, and I'm going to ask each of you just to share contact information before we get out of here.
Yeah, MOVA, our telephone number is 212-442-4171, and actually 311 is a better way to get us. Or you can get us on the website at www.nyc.gov/veterans.
Black Veterans for Social Justice, 665 Willoughby between Troop and Marcus Garvey. The number is 718-852-6004. Our website, www.bvsj.org. Housing applications, you can review the different programs, all online, that can be of assistance to you.
Well, that's all the time that we have. We're going to bring Intersect to a close now. But I would, of course, like to thank our guests again for their service and for being here today. Commissioner Terrance Holliday of the Mayor's Office of Veteran Affairs, Wendy McClinton of the President and CEO of Black Veterans for Social Justice, and Aaron Bramwell, a veteran of foreign wars. I'd like to thank them for being here, and we'll see you next time. Bye now.
Watch this and other Brooklyn Independent Television episodes online at breakartsmedia.org/BIT.